Welcome to Our Drummers Musicians. I'm your host Luke, and today I'm sitting down with a staple of the Melbourne jazz scene, drummer, composer, and all-round legend, Ronny Ferella. Ronny's been a key figure in Melbourne's jazz community for years, known for his deep musicality, groove, and dedication to the craft. He's played with some of the best, and today we're talking about his journey, how he got into drumming, the music that shaped him, the teachers and mentors who have helped him along the way, and his role as a community builder and educator. We also get into his new community record label, its unique model for releasing music, as well as discussing the business side of being a musician today. Ronny's got plenty of wisdom to share, so it's a great time catching up with him, and I hope you enjoy.
Do you do CDs? Is there a CD player?
I have a CD player in the other room.
Do you want them?
Oh,
That's
yes,
good.
please. Thank you.
Brand new.
Oh, that's awesome.
How good's that green? I was so pleased with the green.
That's a beautiful colour.
Yeah, it's good. You never know when you're making them at home.
Yeah.
Because, screens all have their own version of green.
Wow.
So I was pleased with that.
That looks awesome.
That's the band with the writing's a bit big on the inside, but it sort of suits this group. It's a pretty wacky group. So,
it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about Trip.
Trip is so it's myself and Elliot Lamb, who you had on the show, and
Yeah.
Sean. It's really came out of Sean and I have played in duos for a long time, for years now.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sean discovered this Joey Barron record. Do you know Joey Barron?
I don't.
Joey Barron's an American drummer. He'd be about 10 years older than me, and he played with John Zorn and Bill Frisell a lot.
Oh, okay.
Depends how you want to think about it. He's the last of that generation who played jazz in maybe in a more traditional iteration of acoustic.
Right.
Or he's the beginning of the new crew.
Yeah, okay.
No, it's actually not the acoustic thing. It's the musicians who moved from, my understanding, and John Zorn's a big part of this, musicians who started to play lots of different styles.
Right.
I think up to the... I'll be shot down for this. Are we recording? No,
We are.
We are. Jeez, you just do this. My take on it, this is from reading a bit about John Zorn and trying to fill in the gaps. Working musicians for a long time, when there was a really thriving live music scene, if you were working as a blues player, you'd be working as a blues player. You don't get the opportunity to kind of get your surf chops happening or your heavy metal chops.
Yes.
I feel like Joey Barron was the beginning of that crew who started doing lots of different stuff at a high level and then putting it into, let's just call it the improv scene.
Yeah, cool.
So John Zorn has some music which is sort of like thrash jazz, his All Net record, which is amazing.
Okay.
And then and some of his game pieces, they will do that. He'll get musicians from all styles and just put that all together. Anyhow, Joey Barron has this group called Barron Down, which is just drums, saxophone, and trombone.
Okay.
And it's wonderful. It's sort of free, really groovy. It's sort of roots grooves with all these beautiful free sections. And Sean just called me, or he said, "Hey, do you know this record?" I said, "Yeah, I know this record. I remember when this record came out." He said, "Let's do some of these songs." And so we got Elliot Lamb in, and then that was the beginning of the band.
Wow.
So we are the only official Joey Barron tribute band in Melbourne. But we only play a couple of his songs, and the rest are Sean's and Elliot's.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I've got to get some in there. Yeah.
Do you do much writing?
I have previously. I have really not for a long time. Although I do put a lot of bands together, and I do lots of sketches. I kind of for a long time I've done this thing of putting pieces of music together, putting stuff on paper, but just to get the band going.
Okay.
And I'm very clear with the musicians that these pieces aren't done until we play them. So,
right.
and I've sort of crafted that as a skill, I suppose, that having just enough information to get things moving in a particular way, but really it's only to see what's possible in the improv. Yeah, it's just a kind of guides the improvisation a bit.
Okay.
I'm not interested in hearing back what I've written. I'm interested in hearing where that can take the ensemble.
So what kind of things do you put in, these sketches?
Yeah, they can be just sort of, just straight up grooves or melodies. Sometimes I'll just have melodies and I'll say, let's play these in free time and see texturally what we can do. I've been doing a lot of rhythm things. I just did a little series of gigs with Julian Wilson, one of my old playing partners, and they were rhythmically based. Actually, I've been playing. I bought do you know the Roland SPD?
Oh yeah,
I bought one of those because I like playing with text, and also playing with loops, and it's a good practice tool. So I was doing a bit of practice on my own using quotes from economists. I won't say silly quotes, but I think they're silly, like chickens don't make money. But there was this economist saying chickens don't make money. I thought that's cool, and so I just played along with it, and I thought this feels like 15. I was just getting these. I was just finding a rhythm within it, and so I worked out a few different ways of expressing 15. I don't want to get too nerdy. 3 5s, 5 3s, 3 4s and a 3, and so I came up with these grooves. So I'm just on the kit, and then I'll just jump on the piano and say, oh, that'll work. Come up with a bass line and a top line. So I did a whole bunch of them, and so we just played those grooves with the same loop. So the loop doesn't change. Chickens don't make money. Chickens don't make money. But we're changing how we feel it. So it's really fun.
Cool.
And it's not super metric, if that makes, it's kind of, you got to stretch a little bit, which is fun.
Yeah.
And that's when the page no longer is helpful, because some people want to be accurate to the page. And I'm saying that you have to kind of acknowledge the feel of what you're hearing. So it's actually like an oral thing where you have to slightly change how you're perceiving that loop you're hearing.
Yeah, interesting.
To lean into other points. Yeah. It's kind of like metronome practice, but in a slightly more organic way, because you still need to be really precise, but the precision isn't completely gridded, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's more of a feel thing.
How long have you been exploring that?
It's been a couple of years. And it might have been a post-COVID thing where I, like most other people, set up the nice drums in the practice room, and then got the recording gear a bit better and started recording a lot, and then started playing a lot on my own. So I was starting to do these drum solos with these loops. I was quite good, and I got close to recording them, and then I got distracted by the outside world. But I'll come back to that.
Okay.
But playing them with other people, that's a fairly recent thing. Yeah. It's a combination of, I've been looking at this sort of West African influence rhythm thing for a long time. And it's basically just about feeling a set amount of units, shall we say, within a time frame, lots of different ways. So you can have sort of interlocking patterns that have different, what I consider as entry points or viewpoints.
Sure.
Yeah.
If I could ask, how did you find it, exploring this non-metronomic, logical, everything's got to fit in the square, attitude? Because a lot of music where you are dealing with odd time signatures and different subdivisions gets very mathematical or analytical from a structured sense.
I think that's what got me thinking about. In a way, I'm a real folky. I listen to lots of folk musics.
Okay.
So folk music, ethnic musics, folk musics, if you know what I mean, traditional musics from other cultures. There's not a huge. I haven't found that many truly polyrhythmic musics. There's a lot of West African music that is, but around the world, most things are in 4/4, and then you have more what I think linear odd times, Balkan music, Macedonian music, that stuff. They all have a dance to them, and I think a lot of the odd time stuff you hear, maybe in jazz or fusion, it has a dance, but the dance is often quite locked in. And I just thought I find that hard for a start. I'm not that good at it. And it never felt great because I felt it was locked in. So I've just tried to take that idea of having more than one dominant pulse or clave, so sometimes you can create new things that feel like a new pulse, even though they're not polymetric. Cuban music does that a lot because of taking, being influenced, well, not more than influenced, like the African overlay with the European overlay of 4/4 music. So you've got a 12/8 music that's been jammed into a 4/4 context.
Yeah.
So you have kind of almost these false false polyrhythms happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's just coming from that, and then playing with numbers, saying, well, if you can do it in 12 and 8, you can do it with any number. Yeah.
Wow.
So and then I listen to so much great soul music, and you listen to those drummers, and they're never super. What's the right word? They're never super gridded, because I reckon they're precise and they're consistent, but there's always a beautiful swing in there, and you think, well, you can't lock that up. Yeah, and it changes verse to chorus. The swing changes a bit, so it's kind of that, and it becomes. Sorry, I'm taking a long time to answer. It becomes all about the body, about how you move your body, and then learning to move your body a certain way consistently, and then you go, oh, okay, that's what that feels like.
Yes.
Yeah.
So speaking about like different types of music that you listen to, then I like to ask, what is the most recent album that you've listened to?
I thought I knew you were going to ask this question. I'm in a sort of a hover period with my listening. I've been driving a lot, been traveling a lot, so the listening becomes. I'm a situational listener.
Okay.
I listen in the kitchen when I'm cooking. I listen in the car, and if I'm doing long drives, that's a particular listening, because I need sing-alongs, or I need. I need.
Okay.
If I listen to really beautiful acoustic jazz, you can't really hear it properly in the car, so I tend not to. I've been listening a lot to the more recent Kendrick Lamar record. Mr. Morales, that one. It's just, I really like his stuff. I just love the grooves, and just the way the grooves and the production are married. You know, they're just so integral. I just don't think you can pull any of that stuff apart. It just falls away. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, they're not. I don't think they're great. It's not like they're great songs like Beatles songs. I did listen to Revolver in the car, the Beatles records. They're great songs. You know, you can pull those songs away from the production, and you've still got this thing. I just love the production and just the whole storytelling of Kendrick Lamar's music. Yeah.
So is he one of your sing-along artists?
That's not so much no, the sing-along gets pretty simple. The Carpenters. Yeah. The Beatles.
Yep.
I think a lot of 60s, 70s stuff, to be honest.
Yeah, cool.
I did an Elvis one a couple of trips back.
Okay.
And I just know all the words. It's like, how did this happen? I mean, I just grew up around that music. It was just in the air a lot. It was on the radio.
Okay.
Yeah. But those Elvis things are great. That's a great example of really consistent, precise playing, but with a beautiful lilt or swing, whatever you want to call it, a beautiful kind of stretchiness to the rhythm. That stuff's really, they're very good bands. Yeah, all these bands, I think, were always top notch.
Were you happy talking about, you know, like how you sort of got started in like the early days of, you know, your music listening, and, you know, the first adventure onto the drums?
Sure. I started playing when I was about 10. My listening, I should say, like I grew up in an Italian household. My parents were both migrants from southern Italy, from the Neapolitan region. So I've sort of got, and you know, the older I get, the more I treasure it, have this sort of Neapolitan awareness from a young age, and that brings you close to North Africa. And there is a sound in the singing that is shared. So actually from the very beginning, I was hearing those sounds. But my mum listened to a lot of folk music from her region.
Yep.
And she listened to Aussie country music.
Oh.
Never got to ask why. She's not with us anymore. But yeah, Reg Lindsay. She had this Reg Lindsay cassette.
Okay.
I don't know if you know Reg Lindsay.
I don't.
No one knows Reg Lindsay. Songs like Old Shep, songs about his dog, you know.
Wow.
I mean, that was just on. And we just, you know, I'm 56, I think. Yeah, 56. Radio was just radio. So it was, you would kind of hear a really a broad cross section of music, which was, in hindsight now, it's a lovely way to grow up.
Did you have like the radio on in the house all the time?
No,
or?
not really.
Okay.
Not really. But I became a bit of a radio sort of, it was a bit of an escape.
Right.
Not that I needed to escape anything, but I liked going to listen to radio. And I had cousins who were a bit hipper than me, and they had a really nice record player, and I would just go down there and listen to their records, even when they weren't there. It's very, very strange now. But so I remember the first hearing the band The Sweet.
Okay.
I don't know if you know The Sweet.
I don't.
Sort of English bubblegum pop band.
Right.
Sort of, kind of, rock and roll, but very soft.
Okay.
Kind of like Kiss, but earlier.
Right.
Kiss is kind of soft in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks tough, but it's not very tough. I'm digressing. But when I was about 10, Mum just said, I had older brother and sister, and they both played instruments. But she just said, you should play an instrument. She just believed that is a nice thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'll play the drums. It wasn't really a burning thing.
Yeah, right.
But I liked it. I liked playing drums, and I liked the practice, and I liked the maths. I'm a mathsy. I'm not great at maths, but I'm a pattern-y sort of guy. So even from the very beginning, when I was taught to read, I thought, I like this. I like the patterns. And I like the practice. I like the not being able to do something and then just chipping away and then being able to do this beat by the end of the week.
Yes.
Yeah. And then when I was about 13, I got into, with me and my brother and my cousins started an Italian reception band.
Ooh.
A 60-40 band, as they call it.
Okay.
People don't, that's another old phrase.
Yeah, what does that mean?
That means 60% contemporary music, and then 40% it's continental music from the continent.
Okay.
So the Italian music.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that's what it means, 60-40 band, yeah.
Right.
Such a great term.
Yeah.
So functional.
I like it.
And I've always maintained that sort of functionality, or the concept of you're there to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There is, regardless of what that is, but you are there to actually achieve some outcome. And I quite like that. Sort of takes the pressure off.
Yes.
Yeah. Takes the pressure off me, and just, you get your, just, what am I doing here? Let's do it. Yeah. And then I played drums, and then I got into some, I discovered bands like Talking Heads and The Police. Yeah. And that was big. Talking Heads especially. The Police for the drumming, The Police for the music, and Talking Heads for the culture.
Tell me more about that.
Well, I didn't know, I didn't grow up around an art awareness. There wasn't like an awareness of art, if that makes sense, or of hip or not hip. But I could hear in Talking Heads that they're talking about interesting things.
Right.
Yeah. And I think I only realised much later, I heard that African kind of influence in the rhythm section, and that repetitive thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that church thing that he brings in.
Right.
David Byrne, the kind of preacher, and all that stuff really kind of spoke to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And The Police, it was more in just the kind of the glamorousness of the music. I thought the music was just so good. It's just a trio, great songs, super sharp playing.
Yeah.
And I just thought that's pretty good. Yeah. I think they were the two bands I was really, really, really into. Yeah.
Did you ever get a chance to see him play?
No, I didn't see either one of those bands, and I could have. Did I get to see No. I'm just wondering if Talking Heads came. They must have. I was a bit too young. And then David Byrne was here about 5 years ago, and I missed that.
Okay.
With that American. I forgot what it's called. They made a movie of it, and it's fantastic. I went to see it at the cinema. It's a live show, which then he took to Broadway, and then Spike Lee kind of recorded it, and they turned it into a live show shot for cinema.
Yeah,
it was brilliant. It'll come to me. American something. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, I cut you off. So in your
you need to.
in the development of your listening
Yep.
and excitement, you'd got to Talking Heads and The Police, and
Yep.
it just took you to the next level.
Yeah. And then I was always having lessons. Yeah, I was just having lessons with this. My first drum teacher, Bob Freeman, was a dance band drummer. He taught me beats like The Begin, the slow rock. They all had names.
Wow.
The Begin, the slow rock, the cha-cha. They were all dances, all Americanized versions of South American music, of Cuban music.
I'm sorry.
But I didn't know that. They were just beats you learnt. And then I had another teacher at a music school, and he was amazing. He was a composer as well, and he'd teach me a bossa nova, and he'd bring in guitar and play guitar. Or he'd teach me a 3/4 waltz and bring in the accordion and play the accordion. So that was amazing. And he was gearing me up to be a classical percussionist. So I was doing all the snare drum stuff, and then I had some timpani lessons, and that I was like not really here or there with that because I wasn't listening to classical music. So
okay,
yeah. And then he left. And then I went to another teacher, Ray Timms, and he was great, and he was like a really good working drummer.
Right.
And it's the first time he had a chart for the John Farnham song "Playing to Win."
Oh, great tune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had a proper chart, and he took me through playing a chart, and I was like, "Whoa, this is fun."
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And then it was a drum school, John Reynolds Drum School, and in the door just across the corridor was this other teacher, Jim Bailey, and his students always sounded really fancy. And then Ray one day said, "You need to go to Jim because you need to do, because Jim was more of a jazz teacher."
Right.
Then I went to Jim Bailey, and then Jim also taught at the Adelaide Con. And I ended up there and did a 2-year degree, and he was my teacher. He was a big influence. Once again, really musical. Same, he played vibes, so we'd play songs, and he'd play vibes and I'd play drums. So I was kind of lucky, and maybe it's my personality as well, but I was lucky to always have that as a drum student, to always be really close to the music, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Drums can kind of go into a drums only zone.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of amazing, but I don't think that's ever been my forte anyhow. I don't think that was ever going to interest me. Yeah.
That's so interesting that you've had so many teachers that played with you.
And that
like
that just happened to be. Yeah.
Wow.
Which is great. And then I had some lessons, then I went to moved to Melbourne, had some lessons with people here. I've been to the States a few times and been really lucky to have some amazing teachers. Joey Barron. Ooh. I had a couple of lessons with him, and then a great drummer, Matt Wilson, contemporary drummer. And I got to spend quite a bit of time with Matt. We became quite good friends. And he's an incredible educator because he just doesn't tell you much. It's just got beautiful philosophies, and they really helped me a lot.
Yeah, interesting.
Just about listening, just the whole connection between listening, moving, listening. Yeah. It's gravity. Done. Yeah, really, that's it. Listen, move, listen. Yeah.
Wow.
You can break it down into just to that. Yeah, and then observe that and think about it and do it again. Yeah.
Have you felt traveling to America and the differences and similarities of the music here in Australia versus over there?
Yep. What's your question? What are my thoughts on that?
Yeah.
I think the older I get, the less I think about it.
Okay.
For a start. Yeah. My wife's there at the moment. She's Michelle Nicole, great singer, and she's been going over quite a bit and sort of developing some networks, and so that's actually that I have more information from that way because I'm here and she's there, and that's really fun, and we have these great chats about it. I think all music is local, and that's really important. I don't think you can or should escape that. And I also think all music is personal. I like Dewey Redman, the American sax player, who's first time I saw him was like, oh boy, what is that? Not because he's American, because it's Dewey Redman. Now, Dewey Redman happens to be American and happens to, and that goes back to all music is local. Do you know what I mean? Like, to me, those things you can't separate them. There's a personal thing you really like about a player, and they happen to live somewhere, and so they're influenced by that thing. I got deep into New Orleans music, really spent quite a few years really trying to explore that, and went there, and that was really fun, and felt like, yeah, that's different to New York, which then makes it much easier to think about, Melbourne's different to New York. It's also different to New Orleans, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of my take on it. I think there's the geography, there's that whole thing about landscape and the water, but then there's that cultural thing of work ethic, which the scene can sort of shape. How mean the scene is, how many opportunities to play there are, what opportunities. Do you know what I mean? So I'm really trying not to think one is better than the other, or you need a certain one. It's just, it is what it is. I think it's healthy just to acknowledge where you live and say, okay, things are like this because of this, I think. How do I want to negotiate where I live? Or do I want to live somewhere else? Yeah.
What was it like, moving to Melbourne, not having grown up here, but then establishing yourself, as a musician in this scene?
Yeah, it's good. Look, I think I was really okay. I moved with Michelle, and we'd come over quite a few times and done some gigs, and it was great with her because she had, she's such a great performer, and I suppose was very noticeable. because she was very good at what she did. But I came over and did more blues gigs than anything. I was really in the blues scene, which was great, which I love, which I don't get to do much because no one calls me. But that's okay.
Maybe after this.
No, maybe after this. I'm just sort of busy, and I get it. I don't go to blues gigs, so that people don't know I'm around. But I'm just really busy. So, but I love playing that music. I love playing that music. So it was good because it was fresh and it was bigger than Adelaide, and there was lots on. I moved in '95, and it was busy. It felt busy. It's busy now, but I had nothing else to do. That was so fun. Yeah, and so me and Michelle moved over, and we just did. We're lucky. We were embraced by the scene, you know, and we didn't stay home very much. We were out a lot, so it was good. Yeah, you start to understand the geography, and I think then there was a little more crossover. The scene wasn't as big as now, and there was a bit more crossover. I would do gigs in, like, say, a trad jazz scene, and then I'd do a free jazz thing with a couple of the same musicians. That happened a lot.
Okay.
I'd do a big band gig, and then, a New Orleansy thing, and there'd be a lot of the same musicians I'd be playing with, playing lots of different styles, which is how I grew up in Adelaide. You played lots of different things. Yeah.
It's interesting that you sort of were speaking about that. I can't remember the drummer's name you mentioned, but
Joey Barron.
Yeah, at the Change, and how. Do you feel now in the scene that it's quite a bit more siloed, and people playing generally, within the camp of their music style?
I feel like it is. But I just feel like it is. Like I say, I'm kind of busy, so I don't get to see enough. But it feels like people are a little more specialist. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Like, I think everybody's quite connected, but generally the playing is in quite a niche scene.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that is. I reckon that's, like I said, when I was a kid, radio was radio. You couldn't find specialist. Well, I didn't know where to find it. It was Monday night. There was Jim McLeod's jazz program on ABC. It was Monday night. So I had that. You kind of had to really look for the specialty stuff.
Yep.
There's no DVDs. There was no YouTube. So you just had to find it. So it was sort of easier to have a broader knowledge of things, but you had to kind of look quite deep for them as well.
Yes.
You could know about more things because there wasn't a dominant culture. It wasn't easy to access. Yeah. You had to be really kind of nerdy about that.
Yes.
So I was just a music nerd, so it was all good. I was up for all of it. I'd just go to the library and go, well, that looks good. I don't know what that is. Lots of classical music, I don't know. I've got a pretty good broad knowledge of a lot of different things, but I know quite a bit about New Orleans music.
So when did, like, the jazz thing for you take over?
It was in the 85, 86, when pop music, when the gated snare was everywhere. And I got so sick of it. I got so sick of that. Do you know that big snare drum from the snare drum sound?
Yeah.
Drumming was so boring, like in pop music. It got so stiff, and I just started drifting off and started trying to find other music.
Yeah, right.
And I had a car, had my HG Holden, and to the left of the dial on AM there was this jazz station, and I didn't understand it at all. And I've pretty much still gone with that kind of concept. If there's something that interests me and I really don't understand it, I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, interesting.
It was as simple as that. And at the same time, the WOMAD Festival started, and I was talking to Jerry Costa last night at PBS.
Oh, yeah.
He was talking about prog rock, and I said, I think I skipped prog rock because WOMAD came at the time where I should have been listening to prog rock, and it replaced it.
Yeah, wow.
And so then that was like this whole world music explosion, and I suppose that softened me up for jazz, if that makes sense.
Sure.
It just sort of opened my ears up and went, all right, well, this is all, nothing sounds weird to me. It all sounds good. So it really came out of boredom or just restlessness, that the pop scene started feeling really tiresome.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what was the journey like then, I guess, like diving way deeper into like free jazz, which, like, as far as accessibility goes, quite a lot harder for like a general listener to get into.
Yeah, that took me a while, but I was a very traditional listener, and really into the history. So, but then I think Ornette Coleman and Don Cherry is both Ornette Coleman and Don Cherry, but Don Cherry's got a lot of records which are so influenced by traditional folk musics. So that was like, and Ornette's kind of like a folk, he's kind of like a bluesy, he's a bluesy guy just off the hook. So I think both those players had this rootsiness in their sound, and so that I liked.
Right.
And I liked the fact that it was just kind of loose. You could hear like, okay, they're not just strict. It's not strict forms. You know, I didn't know much about forms and that, but I think my sort of awareness was, I could hear, you know, I knew I could hear a blues form, and I could hear, no, this hasn't got that. We're not always getting back to the same spot. So I think I liked that.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it took a long time. Then it was Coltrane was a big thing, you know, and then, you know, I'm a believer if you get into a artist and you really like them, you know, it's kind of cool to follow them through. So I followed Coltrane to the end, and it was like, whoa, this is getting really weird, you know, really weird. That got very free. And then it was much more recently, but Albert Ayler was a big one. Albert Ayler and Sonny Murray and those drummers. I started really listening to the drummers a bit more, and Milford Graves and Andrew Cyrille. And so Andrew Cyrille would play with everyone. He'd play really pretty straight ahead, and then I'd hear him on Free Things with Cecil Taylor, and it's like, okay, I think I can hear the rigor or the structure in his drumming in the free stuff, because I knew his music in the more conventional stuff. And then that was like, okay, I think this is cool. I think I'm in.
Yeah,
Do
right.
you know what I mean? Like, I think because it's hard, because one of the problems with free music, it does open itself up to a lot of shabby behavior. All music does, but you know, and that did happen when the energy music, or the creative music as they called it, came out. There was a lot of people who weren't really very good, and they were just kind of putting on a funny hat and making some sounds. But I think when I was starting to hear players that also were playing in a more conventional way, I could hear how their I could hear the rigor in the free stuff. I could start to hear how they were kind of just what you keep and what you change. Yeah, you're not just making noise.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to talk about your new community record label, Cross Street
Records. Yep.
Yeah. Where did the idea for that come from?
Okay, that came from me breaking my wrist a year ago.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a big scar. I broke it quite badly, yeah. It's kind of pretty good. Actually, I have a sore left hip from it. It's long. That's how the body works. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, from my neck not ever being dealt with after falling. Anyhow,
wow.
We can work on that. So I was out of action for a bit. So it was like COVID 2. So I was back. I was like, oh, I know what this feels like. But I was okay. I wasn't too fussed. So I kind of did a bit of a deep dive into the punk music of the 90s.
Okay.
You know, I just started. I was watching lots of docos and, you know, and listening to stuff. And there was this one doco and a book I read on this East LA scene, and I've forgotten the venue, but this crew were connected to a venue, and they had like this magazine, Maximum Rock and Roll, that's right, and then a radio station that helped out. And it was just like, wow, what a great ecosystem. And then they did everything themselves. And then I was talking to my friend Sean Rammers, who plays in Trip, and he was excited. And Sean's great. And Sean just said, we can learn to do anything we need to do. And it was like, there's a young person talking. And he's right. And so I said, let's do it. And because I hadn't released any records for a bit, because I just didn't know what to do with them. I don't really like the streaming model. I don't see that I just don't see it as sustainable. So I feel like I don't want to be part of it. I will use it. So I'm a hypocrite, but I don't want to put my records on there because I put too much, for me, listening's not about that. I'm completely contradicting myself, but I'm aware of that. Because I can use it, I will use it, but I don't want to kind of add to it. Or I just want to see if there's another way, So, and then I was thinking about the old Reader's Digest model where you would just get sent, you'd sign up and you'd get sent 5 records, and you might not even know what all the records were. These are the records we're sending.
Right.
This is a very old thing. This is before my time.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that.
Yeah.
Like, so you would like sign up to Reader's Digest and it included CDs?
This would be vinyl.
Right.
So a friend of mine, Pete Camilleri, was telling me about this. His brothers, who are older than him, they would do that, and they wouldn't always know what's coming.
Right.
It's like this is what we have. This is what we're trying to flog.
Wow.
And I really love the idea of the mystery. And to me, that's my problem with Spotify. So I find it really hard I don't browse on streaming services because I just get paralyzed by choice.
Yes.
Yeah. Only if I want to find something and I don't have it any other way, I will check it. Or if I want to check something. So I thought, well, that's kind of fun. So what we're doing, where I've got a couple of records, the band Trip and the Invisibles. So the Invisibles I recorded about 18 months ago, and the recording came up so lovely, so nice. I thought, what am I going to do with this? And so that I thought I need to come up with a way of getting rid of this record in a way I feel good about. And then I spoke with, just in conversations, people say, I'm doing a record. I say, hey, do you want to do this, be part of this project? And blah, blah, blah. So we've got 5 new recordings, and I've got a couple of back catalogue, which haven't really done much on the internet, haven't been on the internet, from older bands. And so they're all on a Bandcamp page, and for $50, can I spruik this now?
Yeah.
For $50, you get the 5 new recordings, new Melbourne recordings, 2 back catalogue, all as digital releases, and you get 1 CD. We're also releasing them as CDs, not doing vinyl. I think that's unsustainable as well. It's just too expensive. And so you can buy the whole catalogue, and then you get all that, and you've got a couple of months listening. And I we're sort of asking people to kind of invest in an idea as well.
Yep.
It's but it's a nice thing to do. It's also about making records, not making them fast, but making it easy to get them out. So the plan is to do this every season, every 3 months.
Okay.
Is to release another batch.
Yeah, sure. How do you go about deciding who's involved?
Just chatting.
Okay.
It's not hard. Yeah. It's chatting. People can approach me, or approach us. Yeah. It's really just who's around. It's the community thing. I think you have to be in the community to be in the community. And so I try to be out there and chat with people or be available. And it's just from that. And then it's, sometimes it's like, hey, this is a lovely program. I really love what we've got this time. I think this is a really nice mix of things. There's spoken word. Trip was pretty weird and free. Phil Collins has got this just good, it's like a modern jazz record. Elliot Lamb's is beautiful. It's like chamber jazz. So it's just, I'm really pleased. I'm going, this is a good offering.
Yeah. So I guess to just clearly articulate it, your customer buys the package.
Yep.
And it's whoever has been involved in that season.
That's right.
You get the entirety of.
And that's a one-off. That's right. It's not the tricky thing with Bandcamp. They have a subscriber model, but it's like an ongoing thing. We don't want to do that. It's just a one-off payment. That series is yours. You can do it all again next time.
Yeah. Cool.
But you figure if you've got 7 recordings all at once, that can take you a while to get through. I find sometimes I have a spree and buy. There's a really great shop in Adelaide. Every now and again, I just they're really funny. They don't have a catalogue, so sometimes I ask him. They've got great ECM collection. I'll ask him just take a photo of all the spines and send it to me.
Okay.
And then I'll have a look, and then I'll check them online to see what they've got, what they are. I'll go to the ECM website.
Yep.
And then I'll just buy a whole bunch.
Cool.
And then I'll spend a couple of months, not all the time, but I'll go through those records, and invariably there'll be maybe 2 out of 6 that I really, really love. But then sometimes, I'm sure you've had this, there's records you come back to and you go, this is great. Why didn't I listen to this? This is so great. Yeah. Yeah. So to me, it's a little bit of an investment in the future as well of, I might like this later. Yeah.
How do you find that then, being someone who is actively involved in buying music, living in a world where it's majoritively people do not pay for music in any way, they just stream it? How
do I answer that without sounding completely nihilist or defeatist? I just see it as part of the corporate sort of steamroller. It's okay. I've no blame. There's no blame. There's no, it's just, I feel like we've all been complicit in a way of, and like I said, it's now with hindsight, you can see how we all kind of got rolled into this. So I see why it's happened. I'm more concerned about the way we listen, not the way we pay.
What do you mean by that?
That not listening for entertainment. Like, I listened to, I drove to Phillip Island yesterday, and sorry, I always take a while to get
That's
the
fine.
answers. Radio National had a big weekend of books. It's fantastic. So they had all these interviews with authors and talking about books, and it was really interesting. And I was thinking, why can't they do that with music? Oh, good. Sorry, I almost lost my thought. And they were talking about Alexis Wright, the Indigenous writer who writes these amazing books. And she said, the reader has to do some work. And I like that. The listener has to do some work. I think when the algorithms start taking over, which has been, we've got human algorithms as well called bean counters and, record managers, record execs. When they start dictating what should be made because that's what people want to listen to, I think people stop working as listeners, stop kind of imagining what this music actually really is. Because I do think all great art, you need to be present as the participant and to finish the piece off. You have to kind of make a decision what you think of that piece and what it means to you. Sorry, that's my long-winded question. So and when you have all that choice, it's kind of hard to engage in all those songs. That's why I like minimizing choice and going, well, just listen to this record for a bit.
Yes.
And you like that Kendrick thing. I think, man, I just love the production. So I just get stuck into listening to the big bass just going, oh, that's so good. Why do I like that so much? You know? Yeah. So I'm kind of involved at Cross Street, the venue. So we put shows on. We've got 2 spaces, but the library I really love because it's small. And often we start a gig and we just, have a chat with the audience, make sure everyone's ready to go. So it's what am I trying to say? It's really built for easy engagement, like it's so comfortable, but also very close engagement. So you can't really hide. You can't be talking to your friend while the music's on. It's just not going to happen. Yeah, you're going to feel like a real dick. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, Michelle was at the Hollywood Bowl yesterday, LA, and she saw Charles Lloyd Quartet with Brian Blade on drums.
Wow.
And she had a group of people just speaking so loudly. It's a big outdoor event, it's not, and it was like she couldn't hear it. It's like, this is not good. That's kind of what I mean about doing the work. There's no work being done, and the music just becomes a thing to have, to have, to use or not to use. And that's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to offer that. It's like, okay, if we're all here together, let's engage in it. Yeah, and not to be a purist, because I think all music has a different function, can function differently. If I'm with Trip, we kind of get noisy. Have a ball, dance, cheer. You can have a chat through it if it's raging. But if there's something really quiet and really delicate, I think listening is probably your best option. If that makes sense. Yeah. Because I know I will come across sort of precious. I'm not precious about the music. I'm precious about the experience. Yeah.
Well, it's so true that like the environment of the experience is so important. Yeah. And if like there's music for different things. So if you want to go just to have, background music or something, then, go see a pub cover band and, have beers and you can chat and it's fine. But it's very different to an experience like that where you're like, oh no, this is about like active engagement between performer and listener. That's right. Yeah. And it's, it's in a way, it's unfortunate people have to pay money for it because then it's transactional. But in a way, you've paid money to be in the band, to be part of to finish the circle, to complete the circle. Yeah. You've joined the band when you've walked in that room. That's sounding precious again. We played it on PBS last night with Trip and we just went for a beer and I feel terrible because I don't know the name of the pub on the corner of Smith Street. I forgot what it's called. And they were playing the most fantastic music. Like I was in really fun conversation with my friends and I couldn't help it. And I thought, I feel terrible because this music is pulling me in. And I think his name's Rob Thomas, this Ghanaian musician. And it was kind of like soul, disco, Afrobeat. It was such a strange music. Right. And it's so beautiful. Live? No, they were just recorded music. Yeah. And I had a really nice chat with the bar people. It was pretty quiet. They were closing up. Okay. And we had this lovely chat about music. And I thought, there you go, that's a win. Nice. Yeah. Because they were playing, it was quiet and the music was a beautiful volume through a nice sound system. There was a bit of love in the room. It was great. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Well, we've been playing this game on the podcast where I get each guest to ask a question of the next guest. Oh, this is a good game. So I've got a question for you from my previous guest, Jude Pearl, who is an awesome singer-songwriter and comedian.
Fantastic.
If you could have any artists, living or dead, and their career, like whose career would you love to have and why?
Oh, Jude, what have you done to me? That's an amazing question. I don't know. Oh my God. That's kind of. I'm usually pretty good, Luke, as you know. I can kind of speak on the fly. All right. So whose career would I have? So it's probably someone I've never heard of for a start. But that's not going to help, right? I have to kind of move fast. Someone like, Joey Barron's pretty cool. maybe because of that breadth, like someone who's just a little, and this is the thing, I've always looked at people often as a musician about 10, 15 years older than me, and I think I've just done that to see how things work, to also watch how people carry themselves through the life,
Yeah.
Someone like Joey Barron, I have tremendous respect for. I think that would have to be the biggest thing. Someone who I feel I'd want to feel respected for my choices,
Yes.
and for the way I carry. So yeah, Joey Barron, because he's fun. He's amazingly fun, but he's very good. So that'd be unfair. I can't. Yeah, I don't know. Why not? I can have it. Thank you, Jude.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I might kind of have a think and get back to you on that, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
What did they say? I'll take that on notice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'll video call you or something, and we can put it on the Instagram.
Yeah. But for now, it's
revised edition.
Yeah, for now it's Joey Barron.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, what question would you like to ask our next guest?
Do I know who your next guest would be?
No.
Okay.
You know that they're a musician?
Yep.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it doesn't even have to be a music related question.
Okay.
It just
No, that's right. I would be interested in what they think. The music. Yeah, what do they think the music community / industry will look like in Melbourne in 15 years' time? Yeah.
It's a big question.
It's a big question. I'm 6 months ago, I would not have been as excited as I am now.
Interesting.
Even 6 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think there's some really, really positive signs and moves.
Are you happy to share what's driving the positivity?
I just feel like, I think in music, I think it's because, well, from my experience, so much of it, in the jazz world, universities kind of is a bit of a part of the ecosystem. So every 3 or 4 years, I feel like there's a new generation. But I think that happens anyhow. Every 3 or 4 years, you kind of move slightly up or sideways. Sorry, bump the mic. Up the ladder or sideways up the grid. The games of snakes and ladders, and I just seeing a change in some of the younger musicians, how they're negotiating the scene. I feel like there's a bit more of a do-it-yourself mentality, and I think that's really healthy. I think that's necessary. And I feel like there's people maybe a little bit older, still a bit younger than me, who are realizing that there's some unsustainable kind of conditions going on, and so that's just going to have to create change. Yeah, I just feel like there's more of a growing sense of, I've been using this phrase, which my good friend Gideon said, this totally makes no sense to me, but I'll use it. If you're not moving forward, you're going backwards. I think to stay still at the moment is a backwards move. And I don't know what I'm talking about, but this is all gut feeling. But I feel like there's a lot of people who are trying to move forward, and not just themselves, or sideways, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just think the models in front of us have gone to a pretty kind of got to a silly state. Just with the internet, just with social media, I just don't think it's helping creativity. And most of us are in this for the fun of being creative.
Yes.
Like, we're not here to be admin people. This is fun. This is so much fun. And I know you're going to have to then edit all my crap, and that's boring, but I do a podcast every now and again with the group Maximum Anything, again with Sean, and I get to do all the button twirling.
Yes.
And it's a lot of work, but it's kind of still fun because it's do-it-yourself and it's a fun thing to make. But filling out a form, yet another superannuation form, is not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. For a $200 gig at a festival and filling out their forms because they don't know who we are, but they've just booked us because they had to book someone. There's no fun.
No.
It's all those things. I think those things need to be sort of got rid of.
Yeah.
Or backed off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's some nice auto way to just, I don't know, have it all sync to your, band CV or something.
Or something.
So that it's not just a constant repeat of information or form filling.
Yeah, yeah. Also, getting where the person booking you actually might know what you do instead of just a blanket form that you fill and off we go. And I think that's really problematic. There's sort of there's a bit of a one-size-fits-all approach. And, festivals are closing down, venues are closing down. It's not that much of a surprise because I do think it's become a bit too disconnected from, and I'm sounding very purist, but just from the joy of creativity and of bringing people together. I think it's become a business and it just doesn't work if it's just a business.
Yes.
It's a dumb business to just do business in because people will do it for free. And so that you can never run something purely as a business when people will do it for free. There you go.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. You won't get a plumber to come and clear your dunny for free.
No.
You just won't.
Yeah, that's really making me think.
Yeah. I just think it's and it's okay to do it for free. To do some things for free. It's not okay to be ripped off. It's not okay if everyone else is making money. But it's okay to play for free. But, it's I think people can get what I mean.
Yeah.
But I think when you just turn it to try to make it a business, ain't going to work. Because that is, to me, that's the in a way the stopgap that keeps it from being a horrible business. The fact that people will play it for free. Right. That's the thing we have to recognise and kind of always try to tussle with that idea. Yeah, I think the Beatles sort of kind of created a big problem because they were just kids who would have done it for free, right? They were good though. They became really good. But I think a lot of people point to the Beatles and say that was a bit of a turning point because it was pre the Beatles. There was still the pop sensations, but it was a little more industry led. You had, you didn't have bands as much. You'd have artists, and then the artists would have had arrangers and conductors arranging and studio musicians and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Beatles broke the model in a to some degree.
Yeah, that's so interesting. The accessibility of it's the band and the removal of all of the other sort of working artists around them.
Yeah, I mean that still exists, of course. But when bands started recording their own music, it's like, we need to change. Yeah, and that's good. We want that. We want that kind of do-it-yourself, street-level enthusiasm, and some way for a sort of a profession to be. But you need a professionalism to have a profession. Don't get me started. and it's not all a quality thing. It's that bigger thing. It's a respect for the whole process and everyone and the audience and the idea of music as one of the expressions of communication. Yeah.
All right, final big question from me before we should wrap up. But I'm having a great time chatting with you.
I could do this all day. I do this all day.
Do you think that your specialization as a drummer is going to continue, getting narrower, or do you foresee a future where you expand out into doing some more diverse types of drumming?
That's a great question. I see, and not to be cute, both happening at the same time, where I think I'm going to get more and more into the way I want to play, which is getting not stranger, but more particular about how I want sound to come out of the instrument and how I want rhythm to feel.
What do you mean by those things?
I'm really onto this thing, and I have been for a long time. That's from studying with Matt, I think, of the drum set as a tonal instrument. So I always want it to feel like it's part of the tonal picture in the music. And with that, you have to have musicians who can also sort of acknowledge acknowledge the existence of that. They have to kind of listen to the drums in a certain way, as not just as a rhythm instrument, as a tonal instrument. So it has a caveat, it has a low ceiling. So does that make sense?
Yeah,
So it's that, and I'm kind of the stuff we talked about at the beginning. I'm interested. I think I'm always going to be interested in this way of playing wobbly rhythms. I think, or just playing rhythm in a gridded, not gridded way. Precise but not gridded way. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to be playing in more and more different musical environments with that. I'm pretty sure of that. Yeah. I'm just getting much more interested in so many more ways of doing it. So that's pretty exciting for me, because I think there's a point where you realise you're not going to be the greatest bebop drummer and the greatest fusion drummer and the greatest soul drummer all at the same time. And that's a good day, because then you go, well, what am I going to be? Oh, this is what I'm being. Yeah. But I also, at the same time, I love playing songs. Just love playing songs. I played at the Phillip Island Bowls Club yesterday. We're playing just straight ahead jazz tunes, and it's like, I love it. Yeah. So I'm really hoping that'll always be part of the picture. Just playing music to people, hopefully dancers. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as far as the drumming goes, like I was saying, I think it's going to find itself in more and more fun musical environments.
Oh, that's exciting.
I hope so. Yeah.
Well, to wrap up, 5 short answer questions.
Okay.
What's your favourite venue to play in Melbourne?
Short answer, but it's probably. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna have to move it quick. You can edit all this, right? Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, relax. It's fine.
It's probably the library at Cross Street, the small room at Cross Street.
Cool.
Yep.
What would be your dream venue to play at?
My dream venue to play at is probably the recital centre in the Salon, because I love the sound in there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Have you never played in there?
I have.
Is it a dream
no, that's
venue
my
now?
dream venue to have. What's my dream venue to play in? I don't know. I don't know if I haven't played in it, because it's about when the sound is really. I played in this venue in Turkey called the Babylon, which has this in Istanbul, this big stone wall which is like hundreds of years old, and the sound in that room was amazing. I'd love to play there again. Once again, I'm not being cute. If I don't know the sound of the room, then I'm not. Village Vanguard. Let's go, Village Vanguard. I've been to the Village Vanguard, and I think it has some magic. Yeah.
What is your coffee order?
Flat white, made at home with my stovetop. Yeah. It's more of Italian style. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Not Melbourne style. Yeah.
Long black?
No, just a bit of milk. It's a morning.
Oh, sorry, you did
morning
say
Italian.
latte.
Yeah, latte. Yeah, it's my morning coffee. Yeah.
What's your favourite place to get food after a gig in Melbourne?
I go to Rex's on Sydney Road.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's good. They're really nice. I try not to do it too often, but I go to Rex's for hot chips and maybe a falafel.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, final question. What is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
What would that advice be? This is the advice I follow anyhow, but trust your intuition. I don't think I can go past that. I think that's, you will be wrong, but trust your intuition, because if you don't, all is lost.
Do you think you've done that most of your life?
Most of the time, yeah. And I reckon I've got it wrong when I didn't.
Yeah,
more times than not, and that's why I believe. And I think as someone in the arts, if you don't trust your intuition, you've got very little to rely on. Because I think what we like, what we enjoy as musicians, as creators, is very intuitive, at the end of it. Because there's so much clutter in the way of that. There's so many things trying to get in the way of your intuition.
Yes.
The ego, mainly ego-driven. So try to just develop your intuition and trust it. And I think that's how you develop it, by believing in it. I think that's it. And can we have 2?
Yeah.
And this is the advice I give myself and anyone who will listen. Just engage in the work. Protect yourself with the work, and all is good. Yeah. Then that's your armor. is your engagement with the work. No one can get in the way of that. So, because it's tough, it's a tough game. It's always been a tough game. I don't think it's never been easy.
Yeah. Well, final plug for you as a musician and artist and now community record label organizer. Is there a spot that listeners can go to get in contact with you or purchase music?
There is. Probably the best thing, and it's still not really great, but if they went to Small Space Music, which is a website that I run, and they could either subscribe or just email me, and I check that regularly.
Cool.
There's a little gig guide there. I'm going to try to kind of clean that up a bit, but that will always get to me there. Small Space Music.
Excellent. I'll put that up on the podcast website so people can just click straight through.
Fantastic. Great.
Thanks so much for this, Ronny. It's been it's been really great to have a chat with you, and I look forward to doing it again.
Thank you so much.
So local.
Yeah, that's right. We could do this every day.
Whoa.
Yeah, I can't do it every day. Thank you so much, Luke.
Thanks, Ronny.
See ya.
Thanks for joining us on Our Drummers Musicians. I hope you enjoyed diving into the world of another musician as much as I did. Help us grow by leaving a review and sharing the podcast with your friends, family, favourite artist, or anyone else who might enjoy it. For more info and updates, visit ourdrummersmusicians.com. See you next time.